with. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Stilt, and today we have Nicky with us. And she's a truly amazing founder. I've been waiting to interview her for a while. Nicky is originally from Greece and studied in the UK. Went to University of Cambridge for her bachelor's and then worked at Bain & Company. Then she came to Stanford for her MBA. And after graduating from Stanford, she co-founded Nova Credit with her classmates, Misha and Luke. We'll talk about that. Nova Credit locates, transfers, and translates people's credit from around the world so that people who move can get the products they need. Nova Credit was a part of YC Summer 16 batch and has won many industry awards since launch. Nova has also raised more than $20 million from top-tier VCs, from firms such as General Catalyst, Index Ventures, Nika, and Y Combinator. Welcome, Nicky.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited for our conversation. So let's start with your background.
Sure.
So you are originally from Greece, and then you studied in the UK. You are from a non-tech background. Right?
I'm very much from a non-tech background, so Rohit is politely saying that I studied English literature as an undergrad. Actually it's funny because both my parents are computer scientists.
Oh,
so
yeah, okay.
My mother's a professor at Imperial College in London, and my dad started a software company.
Right.
So you can imagine how angry they were when I told them I was dropping maths. And I actually love maths, but,
right.
But yeah, that was my form of rebellion, which turned out to be the most pointless form of rebellion possible. I regret it every day. But yeah, no, I studied English literature, which was wonderful. I loved it a lot. I was sort of fascinated by languages, how we can communicate,
right.
How human thought translates over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a wonderful time studying that. I never really thought much about tech
right.
at all when I was an undergrad, and then I worked in international development, and then I worked at Bain as well, as you mentioned, and so both of those were very non-tech focused jobs.
Right.
And for me, really just like the entry point into tech was, I would say, mostly accident. Like I came to Stanford for business school,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't come to it because I was interested in tech. I came to it for a number of the other programs that are really amazing there. But then you sort of end up in Silicon Valley, and my boyfriend then, my fiance now, he was working at Twitter, and so I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then my classmates were all talking about tech. And then, this guy Misha and this guy Luke were like, oh, we're working on this project. And things sort of snowballed from there.
Oh, cool. So just to better understand, so you did English literature and then you worked as a consultant. Did you work with any tech clients in your consultancy?
I worked with distressed European retail banks primarily.
Okay.
So, you can call that tech. We did some tech transformation work, but it was
okay. And
not quite Silicon Valley.
And your choice of Stanford for your MBA, I'm sure you got accepted to multiple programs, but
sure, thank you. I'll take it.
Coming to Stanford is more of also a personal decision, because you wanted to be maybe close to your boyfriend or something else?
No, I obtained the boyfriend later.
Okay.
No, I came to Stanford and actually it did feel like a really significant decision, but I think it feels even more significant later because
mm-hmm.
At the time I was like, oh, it's just grad school, which one seems the best,
right?
Which one am I most excited to go to? Whereas
right.
actually I think a lot of it is about where you're going to be. Like I talked about Silicon Valley impacting me geographically. I now live here, have started a company here. It ends up having a real big impact on your life, and
right.
It's very far away from my family, for example. So I don't know, it's a big decision. And I think at the time, what really drew me in was I really valued that the program really focused on individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So you could cater a lot of your own curriculum. There's very little fixed curriculum. There's a lot that focuses on like interpersonal leadership and growth.
Right.
There's a lot that I was really interested in agriculture at the time, so I could take a bunch of agriculture classes.
Right.
So I was like digging on the Stanford farm and taking econ classes. So I don't know, for me it was a lot about like where would I feel most excited about exploring,
right.
where did I connect with the people.
Did Stanford give you the opportunity to explore various industries, like agriculture being one? Did you explore other industries?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think part of the reation was, so we started Nova as a class project
right.
at Stanford.
Right. Let's talk about that. How did that come about?
I mean, I actually, it was funny because Misha had sort of the early side of this idea.
Right.
And he called me up and I was on holiday and he was like, Nicky, do you want to do this class project with me? And I remember saying to him, like, no, Misha, I'm actually really busy right now. I need to find a job.
I love agriculture.
Yeah, exactly.
Stanford farms.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was sort of true. And I was like, oh, okay, you know what? Life's too short. Let me try this out. This could be fun.
Right.
No thought that this would be what I spend my time doing. But we started this class project. Things started to snowball. I started really enjoying the project, really enjoying the team. And at the same time, I was sort of applying to my dream job.
Right.
And I remember I got my quote-unquote dream job in agriculture.
Right. Okay.
And it was a head and heart moment where, I would go and see my friends and I'd say to them, I got my dream job and I'm so excited about this class project. And so I sort of realized I was really excited about it and decided to take the plunge. But I would have never done that unless I'd taken this class, unless I'd gone to Stanford. You can continue that extrapolation forever.
The serendipity is amazing.
Or just the number of branch of paths you could take. Like there's a completely other Nicky living a completely different life in all of these parallel universes.
I'm sure this universe's Nicky is the best one.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I would believe so. But did you know, so Misha called you for this class project. Did you know Misha before that when you started school?
Misha, Luca and I were classmates and friends as well.
Okay.
We've done some other projects together too, and so we knew we sort of worked well together and all of that.
Got it. So you are the two MBAs who get to boss Luca around.
We're the two MBAs who desperately beg to work with us. I think it's a little bit of a parody, but for folks who are watching who do business school, there's always a little bit of a joke of the business school kids who are trying to desperately get the technical folks to join them. And Luke somehow was persuaded and has been incredible.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And when you guys sort of worked together on previous projects, give me a sense of were those like smaller class projects or something in agriculture, or what did you guys work on?
So we actually, one thing that we did, and this was with Misha and actually some other folks as well, we organized a class study trip of economic development in Mongolia.
Damn.
Which was incredible. So we went to Mongolia, and actually, so Mongolia was this incredible experience. We visited some of the mines there. Professor Lazard, who's a top economist at Stanford, came with us, and so he's a top economist at Stanford, and he came with us, and he visited. We did all these visits. Wait, so I'm just going to put. It's not his name. What's his name? That's so rude.
You said Dr. Lazard?
It's not Lazard. It's his name is. How have I done his name? I was on a trip with him for 6 days. Lizier. Okay.
I was
sorry.
Sorry.
And so we organized this trip to Mongolia, and actually we had Professor Lizier, who's this incredible economist, come with us. We were studying mines and economic development, and on like the third day there, Misha and I remembered we had to submit our YC video. So we filmed this from like the Mongolian mountains. The internet kept cutting out because we were organizing this trip. We would always wake up before all of the other participants and go to bed after them. So much organizing to do. So we were up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and our YC video is the two of us pulling over our eyes, hi, and then there's the rest of the team in different locations. It's just
it's fascinating. So the YC video was Luke with you guys there?
He wasn't in Mongolia, no. So he was dialing in from it was a whole disaster.
Okay, no, that's not. But it worked out.
It worked out. You never know. Yeah.
I think YC must have seen the conviction here, people in Mongolia on a Mongolian mountain recording a video without internet.
Yeah, and we'd be like, these are pressure-prompted people. They should be entrepreneurs.
That's awesome.
Create ridiculous deadlines and somehow it hits.
Yeah. It's always you have to submit the video at 8 p.m. and you're started recording at 5 p.m.
Of course. Why would you? 3 hours is so much time.
Right. We can do 5 videos. No, that's awesome. So you chose Stanford. You did projects with Misha and Luke. This is the one you guys decided to go to YC with. Did you consider other projects that were interesting that you thought could be startups? And why pick this one to be a startup idea? Why not digging Stanford farms? Agriculture is pretty hard nowadays.
Yeah, it's growing. I think we had lots of ideas, and I think Misha had many ideas actually, which was awesome. But ultimately, I don't know. I don't know that I would have done this if it had been for another idea or another area of business. I do I don't know, there's something so fun, which I hadn't really known about before, around working in a startup and just trying to like build something from nothing.
Right.
That said, you need to have, like, there are also going to be tough times, and you need to have conviction in what you're doing. And so I think this was an idea that we really connected with, and you know, similar to you, we're very adjacent.
Right.
Here's a future customer. But ultimately, you know, what we do is a challenge that we've experienced, the challenge of not being able to access credit, rent apartments, get a postpaid cell phone plan and beyond, because of not having credit here in the US and a credit history here in the US. And so, you know, I remember applying for a credit card and getting rejected, trying to get a cell phone plan. I'm actually on this wonderful guy, Jason Scott Family Plan, so thank you, Jason. Or similarly, you know, with my apartment, I had this wonderful flatmate, Whitaker, who she kindly, you know, set up all the utilities and did all of that because I couldn't really access them. So there are, you know, having to rely on these duct tape solutions and then being insufficient versus thinking, okay, how can we make a systemic innovation here to change this problem? But yeah, I mean, it's I'm sort of interested actually if I can ask you a question.
Totally.
But like, you know, what was the moment for you with Stilt, or the conviction? Why this business?
I think so. Stilt's idea originally was actually a nonprofit that I wanted to do when I was at Columbia, and what I saw was I had to think really hard about coming to Columbia because I'm like a family's middle class and had to sort of take a huge loan. And Columbia is not cheap, and so is not Stanford, especially MBA. And after I came here, I realized that there are more opportunities in the US than I thought there are sitting back in India. Some of my friends who had been here, one of my good friends went to Georgia Tech. He was doing his master's, and I talked to him a lot and was trying to get confirmation if I plunge like $100,000 into a master's education, would it be worth it? When I came to Columbia, when I saw the opportunities and then I kind of realized that I can make it. That I can pay back the loan, I can get a job, I can do whatever is needed. But a lot of my friends back in India who are smarter than I am, who are more hardworking than I am, are not able to do this because their families are either not able to take a loan, or they themselves are not sure if they can take such a big loan to come to the US for an education. And I know for a fact that if the financing problem can be solved for these people, then there would be 5x, 10x more people coming to the US for higher education and doing really well here. These people are, there's a 996 term being thrown around now. People work 9 to 9 on 6 days a week. These guys are like 12, 12, 7. They work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they're highly capable. It's just that the financing thing is a bottleneck, especially the uncertainty after the financing. So these, I thought if I can start a nonprofit where after I got a job and paid off my student loans and I have some savings, I'll put money in a pool and ask a bunch of my friends to put money in a pool and fund someone's education, who will come to the US, get a job, and again, like, add more money to the pool. And as people do it, the pool keeps growing over time, and like what VCs like to call network effects, in terms of how many people can we bring to the US, how many talented people can we bring to the US, and then continuously grow that pool of money to fund these highly intelligent and hardworking people to help them build a future. So that was the original idea, which I wasn't able to execute on because I had other problems to take care of, and then that idea went into my idea book. I even created a website and stuff, just didn't go around asking people for money. So that was the start. And then when we moved to San Francisco, we actually tried to create a new credit score. That was from that idea, we can maybe try to create a new credit score, which again seemed to be difficult in terms of selling it to people. And very hard. Really hard, as you know. Then the idea sort of evolved into why don't we just lend money to these people? Then we had to go find debt capital. And my co-founder Priyang basically said, I'm going to put the first dollar down. Let's just start lending from our own savings. And I couldn't counter that because everything that we were doing, we were running into a dead end. And by the way, we had like full-time jobs. We were on H-1B visa, so we can't really go around and work full-time on this company. It was like a side project for us. So we started lending our own savings, and that's how we got started. And then we took money from friends. Then my girlfriend, second money we took from her. Now she's my wife. Then we took money from other friends who were working in the Bay Area, and then we got into Y Combinator, and then we started working full time on it, and then we raised more debt capital, and then continued to do what we do. So it was more of an evolution of this thought that the problem we see the problem, we have lived the problem, we see others facing the same problem, and we were trying to find out the right solution for it. And there are multiple ways to solve it. One is importing credit histories from other countries. The other one that we went after, because we are not able to sell credit scores, is actually giving our own money to people, and then that just started the flywheel of sort of proof. And it's continuing till date. At that time, we didn't realize it's going to be that we'd be able to give so much money out, and the demand is so big. Now we have like served people from like I think 100 different countries, from like immigrants from Cuba to Zimbabwe to Rwanda to every possible country that I can think of. I think we have helped immigrants from those countries.
It's really amazing, and I think. Like you say, it's such a big market, and we all forget how big it is.
Right.
Because we get accustomed to people, integrating into the US and starting to act more and more like they're native born. But people move all the time, and we all, the world has been built by people's movement at different points in time, and so it's people's movement is never going to stop. It's only going to grow. And so the questions of how do we truly serve these people and facilitate not just their movement, but all that they bring with them, the richness of their cultures, their history, all of that. I don't know, I'm excited that there are a few different businesses tackling different angles of it, and opportunities for us all to participate. I think that's what's sort of unique about fintech, is so much of it ends up being an ecosystem play.
I think it's really difficult for one company to solve this problem for everyone. It's going to be, now there are a lot of other tech companies that are helping you apply for visas in a tech-enabled way, so you don't have to spend thousands of dollars.
They're awesome.
To do that.
That's a tough market.
But let's see how things go. So moving on. Misha sort of had this idea. I also remember you guys did a lot of research. You went and talked to a lot of people at Stanford. What did you find in that research? So you had your personal experience of facing these challenges.
We did, and we still do. We always try and do user interviews all the time. I think it's really easy, especially as a company that's B2B. It's been easy for us at times to sort of focus really on the B2B side of things, but ultimately like our mission is around the actual consumers. It's around the people who've moved country, and so how can we be close to those? So we've done hundreds upon hundreds of user interviews. I think I've personally probably done at least a couple of hundred, if not more. Doing some more soon. So we did lots of those user interviews across different ethnic, socioeconomic, cultural, etc. groups, to understand like, hey, what were the challenges when you moved? And it was so universal hearing this challenge. That was what was striking, and it was also so universal how tightly bound those communities are, and how much like word of mouth. I think that's why like Stilt is so successful. In many ways, like there's word of mouth around the product, around specific communities, and you can just drive that traction. And so powerful just seeing how connected those communities are, how uniform that problem is. And then also, in parallel, I remember at the time we would sort of create like printouts of credit reports, and we would like walk into these random bank branches and ask the person there like, would you underwrite this? And they sort of look at us and be like, what are these kids doing? But what we heard was basically yes, like we want this data around the world, we just don't really know how to access it, we don't know how to interpret it, we don't know if it's compliant or secure or not fraudulent, and that's where we started to conceive more and more of building this global credit bureau.
Right. No, that's awesome. So and now you have partnerships with many credit bureaus across India, I think China, Mexico, UK, Brazil, South Korea.
Yeah, and we're just testing Nigeria right now, West African country. So yeah, I mean, I would say our country strategy is a little bit of like gotta catch them all. Like it's we want to serve anyone no matter where they come from, or inclusive of where they come from. And so we are partnering with as many countries as possible. Integrating into different credit bureaus in the world is tough and complex, and there's a lot of, I'd say a lot of our innovation is increasingly around like the actual data architecture that we build. So we take all of these disparate data sets from around the world. Different credit bureaus have different, my UK file is formatted and structured extremely differently than my US credit file. And so we map everything to a single data dictionary, where we use a lot of like the latest thinking on like risk and analytics in terms of structuring and delivering that data, and then delivering it in a manner that's like compliant, consistent with US laws, so that in our system, a Mexican bureau looks just like an Indian bureau, looks just like a Chinese bureau file. Like it's meant to be an apples to apples comparison.
Got it. And I'm sure the problem is exponentially hard here, because in every country can just change the data dictionary when they want, because those countries are evolving and developing their own credit system. So
for sure,
that becomes a challenge to keep track of all of these things. It's cool, and I totally understand the problem is pretty hard. So you moved. So you guys. When you decided to start Nova after Stanford, it's a pretty risky jump, right? So I'm not 100% sure, but a lot of people actually have to take these big loans. Stanford is not cheap, as is not Columbia.
It turns out,
right. So and then they would want to get back to jobs first, pay off their loans, and then do something risky. But you decided to jump right into it and start a company. How did you think about your personal risk doing a company right after Stanford?
So I'm going to say something that maybe is a little bit, well, I guess here's how I thought about it. At the time I told myself, like, you can do this for a few years, and worst case scenario, you'll go back and get that cushy job.
Right.
Like, the worst, I think everyone in the Bay Area thinks one day they're going to work at Google.
Retirement.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that's true. They're very hard jobs to get. So, and I think I applied and got rejected for jobs at Google. But that was sort of, the story in my head. Was maybe one day, if we fail, or after like a year or two we decide this isn't really working, then like there is actually this other path. So it didn't feel like very real risk. And again, like some of my dream jobs were like I was applying for like a fellowship in Tanzania, very far away from a big city. So that felt like, so I think the way I thought about risk was, of course, there's the like immediate financial risk, and looking at just seeing the dollar numbers of the amount of money that you owe and technically have spent on university is huge. But I thought about it a lot in terms of what is the impact on my future earnings potential. If it's an arrogant and frankly very privileged place to start, to be like, okay, my earnings potential will be fine if I do this startup. But I felt like actually it would teach me enough experiences that it would be valuable. And that's probably the rational side of things. And then there's also just an irrational side of things. It's just like kind of just being really excited to do it and not really getting excited about anything else. And so just wanting to follow that.
Cool. And it's always like fun to do your own thing. You're just so much more involved. You're always thinking about it, and want to actually see something happen in that field. Like, so when someone let me ask this, like, what was your feeling or as a team when you signed your first partner and the credit reports were getting?
It was incredible. And fast revenue, that was amazing. I still remember that moment. I think I made everyone in the office like get up and jump. Like so excited. I think I think the feeling is very special. And actually maybe for me also, because like I hadn't really I'd not even interned at a startup. I didn't really know what a startup was. I was just like, there was just this internal question of like, can I actually do this? Can I actually sort of like make this? And so it was very intriguing.
That's awesome. I also remember, I mean, our feeling was more of fear, because we were giving money out. We were like, is this money gonna come back, or will we drain our savings? But when it came back, it was like, okay, something is happening, people are paying back. So that was good. So you decided to go full on with Nova. Were you in YC? Did you get accepted to YC before you graduated from Stanford?
Yeah, we got accepted to YC before. Actually, our first week of YC was the week of our graduation.
Okay.
So it was a bit of a crazy week.
Yeah. And you were all in the same batch, so you all
Yeah.
graduated at the same time.
Yeah.
It's cool. Over the last, let's say, 2.5 years.
3 years.
3 years now.
Yeah.
You're building sort of Nova Credit. What kinds of challenges did you guys face that you did not expect? I'm sure there were like a lot of learnings. What were some big ones?
I think the first challenge to our business, which actually was an expected one, but at its core, it's just where I'd say, our business is effectively a platform.
Mm-hmm.
We have a supply of international credit bureaus and data institutions that we partner with, and then we sell that data to financial institutions and others. And so to get financial institutions and others
Mm-hmm.
and property managers and so forth interested in our product, you have to have a supply of data to give
Right.
them. And to get your data suppliers to work with you, you have to
Right.
say here's how we're gonna sell your data and make it worthwhile. And so that's just structurally hard to begin. I'd say the unexpected challenge in our go-to-market came later when I think we'd initially envisaged that we would start working with a bunch of small customers, start
Mm-hmm.
getting more traction there, then we'd go to medium customers, then large customers, and eventually we'd go to really large. Just classic lily padding our way across scale and really building up that sales muscle. And I think what we found is actually that we went from small directly to very, very large. And I think that's structural in the financial services industry, where actually the bulk of lending is still done
Right.
by the top 10, 20 banks, let's call it. And also just because actually it's an industry where a lot of the signal comes from the major players. So it's not necessarily that the medium players are easier to sell to or
Right.
have fewer barriers, which is great. Great, you sold to bigger players than you're expecting,
Right.
but actually means that just from suddenly you're starting this business and you're and it's just we're going to draw this line of growth over time and it's going
Right.
to go up and to the right, and you're actually it's going to plateau for a really long time, and we're putting all our eggs in these 2 to 3 year sales cycles,
Right.
which are incredibly long. And so just that level of just risk and orientation towards the long term.
Right. So you're whale hunting in a sense. It's a really, really big whale. Once you
Yeah.
get a really big bank, then they have thousands of millions of customers.
Once you've caught the whale, it's great,
Right.
but you don't know that you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
And that's a hard piece to live with. And so that's been that was an unexpected or morphed into more of an unexpected challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other thing is, and this was just me being really naive, I thought that, I don't know, I thought at some point in time you fully arrived, or you
Right.
fully had done the rational analysis and you knew your business was going to work.
Right.
Whereas I think you're just, I think the experience of being a startup for me has just taught me about constant change. And constant change, not only in the things that you do externally, but actually how you operate internally as well. So externally, your pitches change, your product evolves, your go-to-market evolves a lot. We're now going after telco. Previously, we went after tenants. There's just
Right.
different strategies and things like that. And that's one thing. But the other thing is how we do all hands has changed. How we send emails has changed. How
Right.
our Slack norms have
Right.
changed. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of thrilling, because you never get to great. You're constantly refiguring out, but that changes as your company grows and the different stages that you're in, what you're trying to achieve. Now we're trying to build different muscles. I've been talking to you a lot about marketing,
Right.
and, how do we speak to users and
Right.
consumers or user research? Those pieces have evolved a lot, and so that constant change versus something being perfected was just something I didn't really know.
Got it. And so so now how many people are you? 30, 32?
We're about 35.
About 35. Did you manage people before?
I had,
Okay.
but not in a startup world,
Okay.
for sure.
And
Which is different.
Yeah. So 35 people, and how many people did you manage before?
Before, I think the maximum I'd ever managed was 4 at a time.
4 at a time. So now it's a much bigger company, and you are in the chief operating officer role. So anything you say, people just scramble to do it.
That would be nice.
Except look.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to be reality, but we'll get there.
So did you have to learn managing people, and how did you sort of figure out how to manage while
Yeah.
coming from a different background?
I think I think what's really different is that previously in working with people, it had been areas where I'd been an expert on something. Whereas I think working in a startup, often you're working with people who are more experts than you.
Right.
I don't know anything about marketing or customer success or actually sales or really any of the things
Yeah.
that we do. Or
SOC 2 compliance.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's a very different. I think you learn a very different muscle in not
Right.
being able to rely on being a subject matter expert. And also, I think another dynamic is not being able to rely on just like fixing things yourself or going in and changing things.
Right.
And so I think it's much more about spending a lot more time like defining like what are our goals, what's our strategy, how do we get to where we want to be, and then creating the right space for others versus being an expert, and then helping them by helping them look at the bigger picture of what people are doing and how that fits in. But
Right.
I probably have a long way to go actually to become like I would love to. I think it's an ambition of mine to become a great like people coach, and I think it's a long way to go on that. And I think startups often miss a bit of an opportunity there where they forget about that side of things.
Right.
But it is really important. So we're trying to build more of that into Nova, building in more like development plans for folks and doing performance reviews and things like that, just to ensure that people are getting the feedback and growth opportunities that they can, particularly when you think like their managers aren't necessarily going to like structure something for them or have quite the same like industry expertise.
Got it. It's really fast learning, and every 6 months you are just redefining what you're doing, because you're 35 people in 3 years, and managing 4 people is different from managing 30 people, and you have to learn a lot of skills really fast. By the way, I think you'd be a good people's coach. So,
Thank you.
So maybe get on that path sooner. So the other thing, in addition to management, that immigrants may find difficult to do is actually building a network.
Yeah.
You came to Stanford, so I guess there was a starting ground, and you have your classmates and others who you start building a network with. But did you sort of face any challenges or had any learnings in terms of building a network of good people, like finding mentors, for example?
Yeah.
How do you sort of go about that?
I think that is so important, actually. And I think in the early days, it was very apparent to us just like the number of gaps that we had. So think about it, we were selling to banks, and like none of us knew anyone who had a job at a bank. And so a lot of it was like going to random events, going to conferences, getting comfortable being more extroverted than we usually are, and making a lot more eye contact than we usually make.
Saying hi to a lot of people.
Yeah, saying hi to a lot of people. And frankly, like some of our like biggest deals today came from cold LinkedIn. Like you start somewhere, and then we actually, first round was one of our investors in our seed round, and they were really great about actually connecting us to coaches. So I remember for about a year I worked with a sales coach, just because it wasn't something I'd ever done before. It felt extremely uncomfortable. I was like, oh gosh, am I turning into like a snake oil salesman or something? But actually it's such an important skill. Networking is sales, right? And like actually half of your company is sales. It's like selling to employees, potential employees, selling to customers, selling to investors.
And the remaining half is customer support.
Which is another form of sales, just with higher stakes. And so yeah, I think that the networking side of things required like a lot of work and attention. And the same, actually the other side of our business, if you think about it, like all of the international supplies, like international bureaus, were literally like emailing people in China and saying like, hey, we're a company in San Francisco, do you want to be our bureau partner? Or any country in the world that we're doing that in. And so I think a lot of it has been about focusing on creating high value interactions. Actually our sales coach taught us this, where he was like, what you need to do is every time you have an interaction with someone, you create value for them. And I think, I had gone into the model just like, I'm just going to keep following up with people and still asking over and over again. Actually, it's like, hey, here's something I thought about for you. Here's how I can help you and support you. And then the other part is marketing. Like, even as a small startup, so much of the B2B world is based on trust. And so showing that you can deliver, be trustworthy, and are real to them really matters.
Yeah, I guess it'd be challenging for these big companies to convince that you're going to be around once they
Oh, that's a question we get, both directly and indirectly.
Right.
What's going on here?
Yeah. How much money do you have in the bank?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So in building all of this and starting Nova, you must also have to jump through a lot of visa hoops.
How would you know?
and I know your story is more interesting than a lot of other people. So why don't you just tell us, how did the going from, you were on F1? How did that journey?
So I was in an F1 for grad school.
Mm-hmm.
I then did an OPT for the year after, so I had a 1-year OPT.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky. So Misha, we had 3 co-founders. Misha has US citizenship,
Mm-hmm.
so that made things a little bit simpler there. And then Luke, who's our CTO, he had studied mathematics.
So he's a STEM major.
So he's a STEM major, so he has the 3-year OPT, so he is
Right.
chilling. But yeah, so I remember when we were talking about company formation, all of that, how would we de-risk it, and it was actually part of the reason we decided to even do something like YC and things like that was also just we'd heard that it helps. You need a lot of signaling for your visas and support, and so we did that path. Anyway, so about a year in, as my OPT was expiring, I had applied for an H-1B. I got rejected in the lottery, and I applied for an O-1 and I actually got it approved. O-1 is the visa, which is the extraordinary abilities one, although I think it's issued to about 50,000 people a year, is it?
Yeah, I think it's increasing now as more
Yeah.
people get to know about it, and it has gotten difficult compared to the last 2 years.
No, for sure. There's a lot of statistics around that, but it's so I applied for that. I got it approved after a fair amount of work on it, which was great. And then I went back home to London for my best friend's wedding, and I was there for about 3.5 months, a week, and it was a little bit of a surreal experience. So I had it approved. I went for my consular interview, and unfortunately they decided to reject it then, which is somewhat unusual. I think the consular interview is typically just a verification that you haven't committed fraud, not
Right.
the application itself. So it was unusual, and then
So it was basically you wanted to get it stamped on your passport.
yeah,
Okay.
and then it was in this weird limbo for a while where the status was being reviewed for a while, then it got rejected, and throughout that period where you're waiting for review, unfortunately the only email you can write to is no reply at DHS.gov or whatever.
Right.
So it's quite a stressful period.
Right.
And then eventually got rejected, which was worse. And then I applied for another O1. I got it approved again. Then run into some issues because I bolstered my application to try and address any of the reasons it might have been rejected. So then I got it approved again, and then the consulate wasn't sure if they could approve it because I'd had the previous rejection. So then I was in limbo for another period, and then finally it got approved. So I was extremely fortunate with the outcome, and fortunate to have our investors were extraordinarily supportive, and wrote to millions of lawyers and supporters and trying to help me, and so I had a small army, which was extremely lucky. But it was a really scary experience because I had a partner in the US, I had an apartment that I was paying rent in, I had a company in the US, and I couldn't enter the country legally.
Right.
And the scariest part was that it's not like someone said to me, "Oh, Nicky, you're going to be in London for the next 3 months." It was maybe next week, maybe forever. Who knows if you're coming in? Who knows if you're not coming in? I remember at one point my now fiance and I were like, "Well, shall we get married next weekend?" So you start. But it was. I think I felt very disempowered, and it was a weird period. So I was sort of working California hours, living with my parents, sleeping during the day, awake during the night. I was extraordinarily grumpy because of all of that combination.
Yeah.
And so I was it was like I'd regressed to being a teenager. And at times I was like, did I make all of this up in my head? Is my Silicon Valley life real?
What did your parents? So one thing, parents always have strong opinions on their kids starting companies, especially after taking a loan and graduating from school. What was their reaction? And they must have been like, "See, I told you."
Oh, for sure. My parents like to say the "see, I told you" about technology, mathematics, computer science, whenever they can. I think they were excited for me, and I think they still are. I think they were mostly surprised. They were like, "Really? You? Oh.
Yeah.
Great." So I think they were surprised, and then I don't know, maybe my parents are too diplomatic to tell me what they were doing.
They're professors. They deal with students.
I don't know. When I was staying at home with them, I'm like, okay, are you sure? But actually, one of my most favorite Nova memories is when I came back to the US, and it'd been a bit of an emotional period, things like that. And I flew in. The visa line was really long, and it was a bit stressful. And then I arrived, and I got through, and my co-founder Misha was texting me, come to pick me up from the airport, and he'd had to wait 2 hours for me to get through the visa line. And then I arrived, and he had this giant Budweiser and an American flag, and came and drove me home, and then it was Halloween, so he took me to a Halloween party. And I think I'd felt a little alienated in that moment. I felt a little bit I'm coming back to this place, but it's been so hard to get here, and it's so surreal, and what is my life anymore? And I felt so welcomed in that moment.
Yeah, and no, that's a great story. And Misha is always. I actually talked to Misha around that time, and he's like, Nicky's not here. What? It just also, in addition to just the personal challenges for someone who's not able to enter the US, you have a lot of important responsibilities here. You may have a lot of meetings set up, and it can completely derail a company, and that's where that strong co-founder relationship is really important for Misha to pick up all your.
I think all our team. I think so much of starting a company is built on trust. Actually, there's so many ways where you and your team, there's so many ways in which you can undermine or do horrible things to one another. I think I have Misha and Luke's bank account passwords and social security numbers, whatever. I can mess with it. But I think that trust is so important, and I felt that so universally from our team. Everyone just stepped up and did parts of my job. Everyone was really supportive, and frankly, that was going above and beyond, because in my situation, again, it wasn't that we knew it's just you need to cover for 3 months. It was one of our team members is probably not able to do most of our job for an indefinite amount of time.
Right.
And so
a really important team member.
Thank you.
Yes.
But I think. I think it's an incredible amount of support to just be okay, we're just going to make this work and live with it. So that's something you don't forget.
Yeah, and it's for immigrant founders, it's just another dimension of risk. You guys, work really hard, you do all the right things, you win so many awards and building a really incredible company, and still there's one dimension of risk that you cannot do anything about, irrespective of how hard you work.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just at the whim and fancies of DHS in a way. But things are well now. You're
things
here.
Things are well now. I have my status.
Yes.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yes.
No, it's great. It's nice to be at the end of that journey. But I hear a lot of friends, and I'm sure you do as well, who go through shades of that and challenges of that. And I think particularly they're just not even. There's the system itself, but also they're just feeling helpless within the system, not knowing who, not having someone you can call or whatever it is. It's particularly challenging.
We actually see this with a few of our borrowers. They go to India for a vacation, and they're like, "Oops, we are stuck, so we can't make payments on loans and stuff like that." And we say it's okay. We will sort of waive off any fees. So we try to be helpful. In any way, because those are this person has been paying their bills on time, and it's just a really unfortunate situation that they find themselves in, and there is no additional help. Really.
I remember when it happened to me, I also felt candidly a little bit embarrassed. It was what did I do wrong with my application, or in some ways, why did this happen to me? I thought I told everyone that I was fine too, so that was a bit embarrassing. And then also with some of our customers and external pieces, we were trying to just not alarm them too much. So I was we'll just do a call remotely. No need for me to be there in person. I was so touched by just the number of stories of people who just come out of the woodwork and say hey, this happened to me. This is how I dealt with it. I know about it, and so I feel so much empathy towards your borrowers who go through it, and it's really heartening to hear that you make it work for them financially.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about now. So things are going well. You're here.
Correct.
With a big Budweiser bottle and American flag.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably on your desk now.
Yeah, exactly. Undrunk.
So you have been through a lot of highs, some lows related to visa situations. What would you advise other potential immigrant founders or people who are thinking about building companies in the U.S.? A lot of people are questioning whether they should build a company, whether they should like start a company if they're already here, something like that. What kind of challenges they may face, and the lessons that you learned yourself.
That's a big question. I sort of go back to the numbers on this one. It's like, what, 43% of Fortune 500 businesses were founded by immigrants in the US.
51% had an immigrant co-founder.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
And so in a world where we're so focused on innovation and solving the world's biggest problems, it strikes me that there's such an opportunity for immigrants, newcomers, anyone who's moved country to do that wherever they feel best suited to. So I'd start with like a strong dose of just like encouragement. Right. I think the other part is like surrounding themselves with like other entrepreneurs who've moved countries can be super helpful. There's this like the informal advice networks are powerful. And then I think it's like finding co-founders that they trust entirely because stuff is going to happen.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if I have something more urgent to say than that. I would say like talking to visa lawyers early. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a little bit of planning, like hedge.
Yeah.
Like apply for multiple visa types.
Right. No, we had it. Just to add to that, we were fortunate enough to get our visas approved in 4 days. Our O1 was approved in 4 days. Yeah, we didn't leave the country.
You're particularly exceptional.
We tried premium processing and we didn't leave the country until we got our green cards. But that was actually a risk. And both me and my co-founder talked about this. We were like, we are going to do this. What if our visa is not approved? What if our status, because we were on H-1B, so we had to like leave jobs, and we were in limbo for like a month or so. And our lawyer was good, so we had already done all the prep work before. And as we started YC, within like very short period of time, we applied for O1 in premium processing. And at that time, it was slightly easier to get the visa, but it was certainly a big risk, and we wanted to apply for it as soon as possible to know what's going to happen. Because if we didn't get O1, then we'd have to go back to our jobs. Otherwise, we'd be there would be no option.
So I'm definitely not an immigration lawyer, but my understanding is like once you are in the US here, there are many different options of visas and paths, and so once you're here, there are a few options. Leaving the country, this makes things a bit complicated. Yeah. So
once you get here, you talk to visa lawyers and figure out what you can do, and just make sure everything is buttoned up on that end. Cool. This was, I think, one of the most fun interviews I had, and you talked about Stilt.
I mean, it's an amazing company and an amazing future Nova customer.
Yeah, totally. It's gonna happen soon.
Yeah, very good. I said I was uncomfortable with sales.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for talking to us.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.